Hello, gorgeous. Welcome to the show. I'm so thrilled to have you here. I am your host and dating coach, Kat Cantrell. And so, this episode I'm sharing with you today is an incredible interview with Alicia Carlson. Alicia, I'll read a little bit more information about her in just a moment. So she has a podcast which is called The Strong Her Way, which is incredible. You already know that I'm like all about that. And she and I are talking about your relationship with your body and how you can change your relationship with your body and the reasons why you should change your relationship with your body, and how sometimes that this is preventing you from seizing opportunities, from stepping outside of the box, from traveling to new hobbies, to finding love. Because sometimes as women, we settle in relationships with other people because we feel like we're unlovable because of our bodies. And so we'll settle in relationships because we figure that this is the best that we can get. So Alicia and I had this incredible open conversation, and I cannot wait to share it with all of you. But Alicia, so she has this non-diet approach to food and fitness and life transformation. After years of dieting, weight cycling, and distorted eating, she was exhausted and so frustrated. It felt like for all of the work that she had been putting in, that she could be putting in, that she should have seen different results. Not to mention her healthy lifestyle always felt so hard and like a part of the job. So she teaches women a non-diet approach on how to eat without tracking or stressing over every bite you put in your mouth. Yeah. Yes. Yes, please. Okay. So ladies, please help me welcome Alicia to the show. Well, Alicia, I'm so happy to have you here as a guest. It's so good to see you.
I know. Thanks so much, Kat, for having me.
Of course, of course. And we're going to talk about, so this is going to be, you can argue that this topic affects all aspects of our lives as women, single women, married women. But I think in particular, one of the things I feel like bringing you here is to talk about our bodies and to talk about our relationship with our bodies, because this ultimately does affect not only our relationship with ourselves, but potentially partners if we don't view our bodies in a certain light that will settle in relationships. And so I feel like as single women, they need to hear this message even more so because of the pressures of all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially
So
with online dating. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
We thought social media wreaked havoc on our body image. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. It's funny because I online dated on and off again. Did you ever online date?
No, I'm a little bit old fashioned. I'm 36, I'll be 37 in April. I have
Okay.
been with my husband since I was 18 years old.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So you
So
haven't.
I think like online dating at that time, it was like maybe on the cusp, like this was still back kind of like AOL.
Yeah. Chat
And
rooms.
definitely like online dating has a totally different vibe now, but it was kind of like the weird thing that people did that couldn't find somebody in real life.
That's exactly right.
But it's like total, I mean, now it's like we do everything online.
Yeah. I when I first started online dating, so I first started online dating in 2000 and when was that? 2008.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit like Match was there, like there was
Mm-hmm.
still eHarmony was there, so it was becoming more mainstream, but smartphones weren't a thing. So to get your
No.
photos on your dating profile, you had to like scan them. So you want to talk about major catfishing.
Yeah, scanners. Holy cow. I
I had one of those Motorola flip phones, like
Yeah,
those
the
razor
razor.
ones.
I
Mhm.
always wanted that, like the commercial, and then it was black and silver, and then they came out with the hot pink one, and
I
I
had a
was
hot
like,
pink one.
"Oh my gosh, I want this phone." I never
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, I had it, but it didn't have the forward facing camera. So you had to like, so I'm online dating. I'm like, I got to get a picture of myself on there. And so it was either like trying to do it with the phone or like trying to do it with a digital camera because those were things too. So having like true pictures of your body or that kind of thing wasn't really a thing. So it wasn't
No.
like there wasn't that pressure even then the way it is
Yeah.
now.
And we didn't have the art of the selfie, right? It was like
Right.
we
No,
all
no.
looked super weird. None of us knew how to take pictures of ourselves. And now there's like all the pressure of like face the light, picture,
Mm,
position it up slightly, slightly turn.
right. That's exactly
I mean,
right.
just all this stuff. You kind of have to laugh at yourself because it's like, what is happening? But
In even in Instagram world, like making the reels and like doing stuff in your stories and stuff that we have access to so many different filters. And there's one that I was actually playing around with today. Not that I was going to use it, but there's actually a Barbie filter
oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to get
that
on there just to see.
it completely changes. Like it makes your chin very chiseled and your lips are about twice the size.
Looks like you got stung with a bee by a bee.
hmm And eyelashes, of course, which I'm pro eyelash. I love eyelashes, but it's, I mean, the body distortion on so many different levels of everything that we're faced with. Yeah, it's mind boggling, truly. So,
Well,
go
to
ahead.
tangent on Barbie for just a second,
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact measurements, but I had read somewhere, and this was years ago, or I'd seen it on something, that if Barbie was like a life size, right? If you could blow it up so that it was in proportion to like an whatever, like a 5'5" woman, the like it literally isn't even physically possible for us to have measurements like that, like the
Oh, yeah.
waist to body ratio to boob ratio. I mean, all of it is just, it's so ridiculous. And I watched a show, I think it was on Netflix, and it was like talking about the history of Barbie, and they were in the process of making more body um I don't like, body image friendly isn't the term that I actually want, but like Barbies of different sizes and different shapes and different skin tones. And I mean, they've already had like colored Barbies, or, you know, Barbies of different color, but they all still had very much the same types of features. And so they were really trying to, I guess, capture like the beauty of different ethnicities, and, you know, just how the facial features change in the bodies. But I don't know, like I don't ever look at Barbies in the store, but I don't know if that stuck around or if it was just kind of their attempt to be sort of culturally relevant of that moment of like, hey, wait a minute, maybe it's okay for our bodies to look different, or maybe this isn't like the healthiest body image that we should all be ascribing to. So,
Yeah,
but anyway,
I think I watched that same special. I don't know if yeah, I'm out of the Barbie world too because my kids are grown and um I want to say yes that they're still around. I want to say yes, but I do a body positivity speech with college campuses, and when I was doing research, that I found that American, the ideal American body type cannot be achieved unless you have surgery. It's not a thing.
yeah,
I mean, you have to
yeah.
undergo a knife in order to have the ideal American body type.
And it's so funny because that changes, right? It's like I remember early 2000s. So probably around the time I was like high school or would have been college, you know, traditional college age, it was like the long and lean, like the, you know, that was when you saw the quote yoga body or the quote Pilates body. And we were all looking to have these long, lean muscles. It's like, I'm 5'3" first thing in the morning on a tall day. there is not much that is long about this body ever. And
Right.
no matter what I tried, like I would do the yoga, I would do the Pilates, I would try all these different diets, all these different things. And, I was able to achieve a certain size and a certain amount or, number on the scale. But it was still like my body still didn't look like the long and lean that I thought. And it was like when I kind of embraced of like, oh yeah, my body's just naturally a little bit more muscular. I'm a little bit more stout, built a little bit more like a gymnast. Well, turns out I actually really like weight training. So that works out perfect that that's kind of what my body was made for. And that's what I really
Right.
like to do. But now we've seen kind of this shift culturally that it's not necessarily the long and lean. And in fact, a lot of like naturally lean or not lean even, but like thin, slender women are kind of getting dogged for being too skinny or too whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And now the new ideal body, the quote ideal body is, you have to be like kind of like big or chesty a little bit on top, but you have to have this small waist and then this huge butt, huge thighs. I mean, it is crazy. And I kind of joke now, I'm like, oh, well, now my body style is like trendy, because I'm naturally a little bit smaller on top and then I've got the hips and the thighs. But,
Right.
how many years did I spend thinking that was the wrong body and that wasn't,
Mm.
trying to fix that or try to get rid of that. So I think we just kind of need to do away with this whole ideal body. And it's like the ideal body is the body that you have because that's the one you've got.
Yeah, right. Well, that's a good segue into, do you want to tell um my listeners a little bit more about your story, about like your journey of your relationship with your body, which ultimately has led you into this career of helping other people?
Yeah. So my relationship with my body and subsequently, I think it's like everything that has to do with that too, right? Like the food, the exercise, the relationship aspect was pretty rocky, I would say most of my life. I can't remember exactly when it started. I mean, I remember as a girl, like just being completely blissfully unaware, right? It was like I just wasn't even thinking about my body, but it was sometime maybe middle school, for sure, high school. I started to really look at, I mean, I would kind of compare my body to my friends' bodies, but it was really like the actresses on TV or magazines and things like that. I mean, this is all pre social media. So, like old media. And I think it was like in being exposed to those images, I became aware that there was something wrong with my body, right? Like my some something's not right because I would look at myself in the mirror and then I would see these images. And I don't think at that time in my life I was as aware now of like the airbrushing or the editing or
Right.
whatever,
No, I
right? It's
don't.
like,
Yeah, it was not open for conversation. We just thought that that's the way it was.
and that's the way they looked all the time. But
Right.
when you read things now and you recognize that, like, when you're looking at magazine covers, like the actresses or the cover models themselves, like that's not even a real or representation of their bodies. Something's wrong, right? It's
Right.
like that's not actually what Kim Kardashian's body looks like. And they've shown, behind the images where or behind the scenes where they're like shaving part of this thigh and darkening this and it's just all this stuff. And it's so crazy because we get lured into believing that that's reality. And so we think, well, this is what a female body should look like. And this is what my body looks like. And so we spend all this time, all this energy, all this money trying to achieve a standard that doesn't actually even exist. Um, so that was kind of where I found myself, I think, high school. And then probably up until, I mean, really just a few years ago, right? It was like changing from the long and the lean to shifting more into kind of the new like fit look where it's super lean, women are super shredded. Um, and all of that, I think, was really driven for me by this underlying desire to want to be wanted by somebody else, to want to be beautiful.
Mhm.
And I was looking for that, looking for the praise and from men or from other people. And just really chasing that, I think, from kind of an empty place. And I made my body an idol, made food, being fit and my ability to be disciplined and all of this stuff just became this thing that I idolized and was obsessed with and stuff like that. So I've been kind of on that end of sort of being, what people might classify as like a couch potato and not really concerned with my, taking care of myself, but definitely felt a certain way about myself, which wasn't great. And then shifting to the other extreme of being so obsessed and so hyper focused of my body, but still not being happy. So it was like, okay, well, obviously, like it doesn't have anything to do with what my body looks like or the size or the shape, or the weight. And that is really kind of what has led me to pursue the work that I'm doing now.
Oh my gosh. You oh, I and I know you and I have talked about this before, but I think that women do have this unrealistic ideology behind numbers on if I'm this certain number or I shred this much or I weigh this much or I wear this particular size, that you'll get the admiration, the love, the attention, the all like the way I described it is like the skies open, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
heavens are singing down and like
Everything in your life
everything,
is going to be good.
right?
Not
But
true.
we realize when we, what's that?
I said not true, by the way. So if
Yeah.
you're somehow thinking that still, just know there is no pot of gold at the end of that rainbow.
No, there isn't because you'll reach it
Mm-hmm.
and then and then you get to that level and then you say to yourself, now what? Because
Mm-hmm.
nothing else has changed other than your body, like you physically made your body change, but you still have the same outlook. You still
Mm-hmm.
feel the same way. You still don't have that love and admiration and attention, the kind that you really wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're doing it for in hopes of getting attention from other people versus just doing it for yourself to how it makes you feel to
Mm-hmm.
be more powerful or be stronger or just be in your
Mm-hmm.
body. So okay, so then did you have like a wake up call? Did something happen to where you said, okay, this is a little ridiculous. Me going from this all the way from this side of the spectrum to all the way to the opposite, right? So what did that what did that look like for you? Because usually there's some kind of brick wall that we hit when we make a
Yeah,
change.
I've heard it called like your diamond moment, and I kind of
Mm,
think that's like beautiful.
it is
Um,
beautiful.
so this was a few years after I was done competing. So I wasn't the leanest that I had ever been. I wasn't the lightest on the scale that I had ever been. But I see it now, and it was definitely still dieting. But at the time, I thought, oh, I'm just being healthy. Like, oh, I'm just, doing this. And I had partnered with a direct sales company right out of getting my degree in exercise science and nutrition, thinking like, okay, this might be like an easy way for me to just sort of get into coaching without having to create a bunch of programs. And, let me just kind of get my feet in here and then we'll, just see what happens. Um, and I just remember like standing in my kitchen one day, getting ready to start a new program, that whole start again, Monday or whatever mentality. And I just remember like feeling so defeated, so disappointed in myself, and just like, why am I here again? Like, I have a degree in exercise science, I studied nutrition, I know all the things to do. Like, why am I feeling like I have to, quote unquote, start over again? And I heard
Mm,
this voice. I'm a Christian. So for me, I really believe like that was like, if I could hear God audibly, it was that little whisper that told me it's because you've been dieting this whole time and calling it a healthy lifestyle. And that just, it was like clear as day. Okay. And when I really started to examine the behavior, examine the mentality, look at the fact of like, oh yeah, I've essentially for the last year or two have been kind of gaining and losing the same 10-ish pounds over and over and over again. I started to notice like food obsession started to creep back in, which was really heightened like during, competition and things like that. I just started to notice more like these behaviors, and it was like, oh yeah, these are some red flag behaviors. So needless to say, like things definitely weren't feeling aligned between myself and this particular company anymore. So I decided to drop that, started to study kind of dieting and weight, and I can't remember exactly where I'd heard about the anti-diet and diet culture, and really just kind of dove into that. And I'm kind of a cheesy, like I like movie analogies, and I always liken those moments to where it's like, oh my gosh, like I was in the Matrix, right? It was like,
Mm,
and boom, now all of a sudden my eyes are open. I can kind of see what's actually going on here. And that was like just like a pivotal moment for me, and really, I think has shaped my work since then.
absolutely. And so tell me, so when you had this, I love it. What you the
The
diamond moment?
diamond moment. Yeah.
I love that so much.
I
So
can't take
when,
credit for it. And unfortunately, I don't remember who said it, but I
yeah.
always think about that. Like, what is your diamond moment?
Hmm. So when you were basically changing the script that you had been writing for so long, right? On
Hmm.
your own life, and how you were not only on your own, but like projecting it onto other people too. So when you started rewriting the story for yourself, rewriting this dialogue of your relationship with your body, what next steps, like if you, for our listeners that are in this hamster wheel of dieting, not loving their body, feeling like their body's not enough, feeling that their body's not lovable, or feeling that they have to lose, I can't even tell you, I'm sure you've heard this before, that women won't do these things because they need to lose. Oh yeah, we talked about this, because they need to lose weight
Hmm.
first, right? In order
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
travel or chase a
Go back to
hobby or
school. Yeah.
go back to
Whatever it
school,
is.
right?
Take that vacation. Yeah.
Um, so if she's listening, like what did you do? So when you had this aha moment and you started rewriting this story, what did you do in your own life to start really kind of leaning in and really making this your truth?
Yeah. I think initially there was a little bit of relief of like, ooh, I can finally kind of let that pressure go, or let some of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff go. Um, but then also, like, to be completely transparent and honest, it felt scary,
Oh yeah.
because it was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, but if I'm not counting food, if I'm not measuring food anymore, am I going to know how much to feed my body? I'm going to just, eat too much. And then, of course, like all of that chatter, that fear of like, I'm going to gain so much weight, and, I don't want to be unhealthy, and, just all of these things. And so for me, I'm a huge like information nerd. So I just wanted to learn like all about it, and like, okay, but like, can you really be healthy at a variety of weights, and, all of these different things. So for me, that could have partially been to sort of scratch an anxious itch of like, okay, let me just research all this different stuff to kind of just have a way to sort of channel that energy. But I think initially it's like, if you are listening and you're kind of just like, yeah, you know what? I feel like I am done with dieting. I'm done kind of playing that game. Just know that it's normal to sort of feel a little bit scared, a little bit uncertain. We've been taught a lot that certain bodies are good bodies and every other body is a bad body, that you can't trust yourself around food, or you can't, trust yourself to know what you need. And so we're always like looking and outsourcing to these, to the next diet, or what's the doctor say, or these experts. But I would say, the first thing was to just recognize that there's like an alternative story, right? It's like, other than the story that you've been believing about yourself, whether that was you kind of creating that story, other people in your life, or society sort of creating that story. I think the biggest thing for me was recognizing that, oh, wait a minute, like, that's not actually the truth. That was like a huge sort of mind blowing moment, because then it was like, okay, wait a minute. If, like, not everybody sees me or sees my body at this size, the way that I do, then that means that I could actually learn how to see my body in a different way. So I think the first step is to just even recognize, or even start to entertain, that there perhaps is an alternate universe in which you could feel completely different about your body the way that it is today, without ever needing to change it.
And I think that is scary, and it's very powerful, because
Mhm.
we love to use our poor relationship with our body as an excuse. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
almost as if that thought process is a way of self-sabotage, where
Mhm.
we say to ourselves, okay, well, I can't be happy because I'm these pounds, or I can't be happy because I'm not this particular body type. So I might as well
Mhm.
not take ownership of that. I might as well,
Mhm.
constantly make these excuses in my life on why I can't be happy, or why I can't pursue a relationship, or why I can't put myself out there or be vulnerable. Um, do you find that, so when you embrace the power of just knowing that the diet culture is made up,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, it's like
that
this make believe.
it really is, I believe that too. And I myself have been through the battles of body image, and I've done the counting, I've done the diets, this kind of diet and that kind of diet. And I too was I too had this like awareness of being like, what am I doing? Like, this is how I had the way that I looked at it. I'm like, this is how I'm spending my life is counting and making sure that I'm getting, and it becomes it just becomes such a huge part of your life that
Mhm.
it almost, that too in itself is a form of self-sabotage, of being
Mhm.
of kind of robbing you of joy of food, or joy being in the moment. I remember, not, I mean, this is me being completely transparent too. So I remember there was a period of time where I would just drink vodka and soda water. Like when I would go out to drink, I would drink vodka soda water. Why?
Because it
Because it
was the
was,
lowest calorie and no sugar, or like the lowest sugar.
yeah. Do you know how many amazing cocktails are out there that you can have when you go to a nice fancy bar and you're all dressed up, and you're going to have a vodka and soda water? Like,
I know. And unless you actually like that, it's kind of like, literally, what is even the point right now? What am I doing?
right. And just robbing yourself of just this, having these experiences, whether it be with food and being able to order that dessert because you're in this restaurant, or whether it's, ordering that fancy cocktail. I remember at the time I wasn't having any cheese. I don't remember why, but I took a retreat of women to Paris, right? So I'm in Paris, I'm not eating cheese. And we go to this restaurant that's like literally in the ground of in Paris, France. And all they serve is like fondue and cheese and bread and wine. Am I going to sit there and go, I'm not going to have any cheese?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm going to have the cheese and the bread and the wine to be in the moment, because I think when we're in tune with our bodies and we start really rewriting that story of with food and with exercise, and like moving your body, not so that you can be tied to the end result, but moving your body by celebrating it,
Mhm.
I think is an
It's
important.
Well, and
perspective.
it's so different. And I think too, it's like for anybody listening, if you're questioning or you're not sure, so for me, it was like very obvious in that moment that, oh yeah, like I have been spending so much of my time and my energy thinking about my body, thinking about food, thinking about my
Yes.
weight, all these different numbers kind of swirling in my head, that it wasn't until I wasn't thinking about that anymore that I didn't realize how noisy it was in my head all day long.
Mm.
And just how much energy, mental and emotional and physical energy, was being directed in this particular area that I didn't have that to give elsewhere, right? And it was like I remember doing one of those, just those standard life wheels, and it was like fitness I would have rated like, you know, totally a 10, and then I'm looking at all these other areas that are important to me too, and nothing else felt like a 10. It's like, okay, you know what? I probably can take some of this energy and time that I'm investing over here and start to pour it into these other cups. But so, I think another activity or exercise that you could do is sort of keep a time log or keep track of how, if you think about food or if you think about your weight or you think about your body or calories or whatever, like jot that down for a couple of days, right? Like the same way that you might be doing a food blog or keeping a budget, keep track of how much time you're spending. Every time a thought pops up, write it down. And how many minutes did you go down that little rabbit hole, and really see like how much subconscious or conscious energy is going toward that.
Yeah. It's like, and we probably don't even realize how much of our daily life is taken up with thinking about all of that.
Yeah.
That I think that when it comes to dating, when it comes to single women and them having a relationship with their body, having a positive relationship with her body, I think that women do feel that they have to be a certain physique in order to attract love,
Hmm.
in order to find a partner, in order to be admired or considered sexy. And one of the things that I truly still believe, that it does not matter your physique, it does not matter how much you weigh, it does not matter, none of that matters if you are, or if you feel good in your own skin and feel confident in who you are. That in itself is so sexy and attractive.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, there might be those guys out there that really are just looking for a specific physical package. Like I think I would just have to question, is that a guy I even want to mess with? Probably not. Um, but I think you're right. It's like if we own who we are, we own our body, like we genuinely have kind of this confidence in it, then it it literally doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, because you're good with you, and the guys that like, you're going to draw the right guys in
Right.
just because of that, like without having to change anything about yourself. There is just like this sort of, I don't know, like this magnetic thing where it's like, oh my gosh, like, and I think that's that thing where people are like, I don't really know what it is about that person, but like, like there's just something about her, there's just something about him, and I think it's that thing.
It is that thing. I totally agree with you. And if you're, and I think too, when it comes to the relationship with your body, like this is why I don't think diets work and none of that jazz works, is because you haven't changed the script with your body, and
Hmm.
you ultimately are setting yourself up for failure. Versus if you work from a space of like owning who you are now and being like, okay, I'm going to embrace who I am, I'm going to start loving who I am now. And then when you start to have that dialogue with yourself, being like, okay, I deserve more than how I'm treating myself.
Hmm.
And when you start to take those steps of treating yourself in a much nicer, kinder, graceful way, we become more confident. And the more confident that we become, the more we're going to be we're going to treat ourselves better. And so we're loving ourselves more, we're becoming more confident. And then, yeah, that's super attractive to the right people versus
Mm-hmm.
if you're losing weight or you're trying to obtain a certain physique in order to attract someone, you're going to attract those certain someones, but are
Mm-hmm.
those the people in your life that you really want to be in a relationship
Mm-hmm.
with because they're only dating you because of that particular physique?
Mm-hmm. And I think you have to think about too, and this is where I think a lot of diets start to fall apart for people. Of course, besides like the biological reasons that they oftentimes don't work,
Right.
but people are like, okay, I'm willing to endure this eating plan or this diet or this exercise program until I lose the weight, until I reach my goal. But you didn't actually change in the process. So you're still the
Right.
person that started the diet when you end the diet.
Right.
And so then you have to ask yourself, it's like, do I want to commit to putting that much pressure on myself? You know, if you look back and you're like, okay, I lost X amount of pounds in 6 weeks, but I wasn't eating bread, I wasn't eating cheese, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't having dessert, I was working out 60 to 90 minutes a day. If that's what it took to lose the weight, do you want to commit to that forever? But then there's not even the guarantee that that's going to work forever because your body's pretty smart. So eventually it's going to catch on, you know, so it's like you're kind of just in this loop that you can never win. And so, you know, I think first and foremost, it's like find healthy habits and lifestyle changes that feel easy, that feel doable, that feel just kind of seamless. Um, and it may not feel easy initially, right? Like it might feel like it takes a little bit of effort initially to like get motivated to work out or to, you know, stop yourself maybe a couple bites less than you normally would so that you're not overeating, you're not leaving the table stuffed. But in terms of like rewriting the story that you have or like healing the relationship that you have with your body, you kind of need to know like, what is it now? And that's scary because we're kind of opening the closet door and we're like, let's bring all the skeletons out. Right. So it's like,
Mm,
I would say, like, do some brain dumps, like, write your name at the top of the paper. Don't edit yourself and write it down. And like, what's the stuff that's coming out? What do you think of your body? What do you think of yourself? Like, let's bring all that nasty stuff up to the surface. That way you can see, like, oh, these are thoughts. These are all optional thoughts. Like literally, it's like sentences on a Google Doc that you can start to, over time, go in and edit. You can just delete that and rewrite something in its place. But until you really see like what's there, I think it's, you know, that stuff is just going to kind of be underneath everything. So it's like you can try to make these changes and try to do these things on top of that. But if that's kind of the foundation, that stuff is just going to kind of keep resurfacing until you really work through it.
yeah. One of the things that it's an exercise that I've had women do where I talk about some of these stories that we tell ourselves about our bodies were actually told to us. And we don't realize it until we like, just like you said, when we do that brain dump where we say, we list down, okay, these are all the like
Negative
thoughts that
things or what,
negative
yeah.
things or that I feel about my body. And then you can take it a step further and say, well, where did I hear these things? Are these
Mm-hmm.
things from myself? Like, did I come up with these things or were these things told to me? Because as women, we've all had negative things that have been told to us about our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll remember those things forever. There's a
Mm-hmm.
story that I always talk about how now this isn't like necessarily about like the shape of my body, even though there's those comments too, but
There's those ones too.
but which you know but I remember I dated a guy who told me that he was like, you have really long arms. And you know, they say that your arms are the same length as your legs. And so
Yeah.
um he told me that my arms were so long and so hairy that I had monkey arms, that I had gorilla arms. Now, this is my
This was a
boyfriend
guy that I was like, this is a guy that wanted to date you.
who wanted to sleep with me, right? Like, this isn't like, this
Some
isn't,
average Joe on the road. Wow. Yikes.
and I took that in. I was like,
Mhm.
nobody had ever said that to me before. And I took ownership of that. And I took that in as my own. And I started like waxing my arms because of it. And it
Which
didn't take it.
that is
Yeah,
not comfortable.
no, it's terrible. I don't recommend it. Please don't do it. But it wasn't until like my partner now, he was like, why are you doing that? Like, it didn't even phase me. Like, I was like, oh, this is something that's wrong. This is something
Let
I
me
have to
fix this.
fix.
Yeah.
I got to fix this. Not that I had the issue with it, but someone else had the issue with it. So it must be everyone has an issue with it.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until he was like, you're crazy. There's nothing wrong with your arms.
You're like, whew, that freed up about an hour a week of time.
And
Awesome.
money.
Yeah.
And then now, like looking back on it, honestly, I'm like, all the time I spent in a chair waxing my arms
Mhm.
because I thought that it was an issue and it was never an issue.
And I think so. I think that there are definitely those things that are said directly to us, but I think probably more often we are subliminally hearing messages based on what we see
Oh,
and what we
totally.
hear in the media. Right. So
Totally.
it's like, yeah, like trace it back and figure out, okay, do I remember like where this particular thought or this particular belief came from? Um, do I not? And I think a lot of times too, it's like stuff, it's things that we observed, maybe even being said to other women in our lives,
Yes, I was
right?
just going to say that. And especially other women who have a similar body type of you, that same that you
Uh-huh.
have. Yeah.
And I think sometimes, I mean, I think it's damaging both ways, and in different ways, more damaging if it was said by a prominent male figure in your life versus if it was said by like a female role model or somebody that you really looked up to. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think that is definitely part of the work. It's like, let's kind of see like what's the story that I have sort of on loop. And then we just slowly start to edit that story.
And I think too, it's acceptable for women to put down their bodies. It's acceptable for us not to love them. It's
Mhm.
acceptable for us to not embrace them versus like when women all get together, they're always putting themselves down
Mhm.
versus getting together and like hyping up themselves. It's not a thing.
Mhm.
And I think society plays into that too, where
Mhm.
we're already having this dialogue with ourselves and we have this dialogue with one another that just plays, it just adds an extra layer of what is already happening inside of us. And I've
Mhm.
always had this thing where I'm like, I don't need your opinion on I do a really good job putting myself down. I don't need your input. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it just adds to that whole competition, right? Where it's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it just or I don't know. I really for the most part I stay out of conversations that revolve around dieting, around weight, around bodies. Um and it's so interesting I think now to go into a situation where that's being talked about again, it's like I just don't even have anything to say anymore because I just I don't want to I just don't want to invest my energy and my brain power there anymore, like talking about food, talking about diets, talking about weight loss. um
It is exhausting.
and I think another note of this, and I feel like we kind of touched on this the last time we spoke, but I think to love your body doesn't mean that you actually have to like be in love with the way that it looks. Like, I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's
no.
okay to just feel completely neutral about it and be like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I have rolls. Like I'm sitting here and I can feel a little bit of my stomach hanging over my pants. Um, and I don't have to feel any certain way about it. Or, I can see my butt in the mirror and be like, oh yeah, there's cellulite there. Like I don't have to like embrace that and love that and be like, oh, I just love the dimples, but I can just feel nothing about it. And I think sometimes we sort of get caught up in this, like loving your body means that you have to like feel ooey gooey about the things that you don't necessarily like. But it's like, can we just move to a place where it doesn't even matter? Like,
Right.
yeah, I have cellulite, I have rolls, I have, jiggle in places, and it's fine.
Right.
And that's not the most important thing about me.
It's not the most important thing about us, is it? But we seem
Mm-mm.
to give it so much more power over everything else. That's one, we don't, it's interesting because we'll put ourselves down as far as our bodies, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we'll put ourselves down, I don't like this, or I don't like how this looks on me, or I feel fat, or I look fat, and we're constantly putting ourselves down, but we don't put ourselves down where we're like, I'm stupid. I'm too serious. I don't have a sense of humor. You know what I mean? We don't
Yeah.
talk to ourselves in that same tone that we do when it comes to talking about our bodies. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think that just releasing, just like you said, just to be neutral about it
Mm-hmm.
and not keep stop giving it the power that you feel like it
Mm-hmm.
deserves to have, because it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
It just like we said, it's made up. Like it's all made
And
up. And I'm always like, are you healthy? Good. You feel
yeah.
good? You feel strong? Good. Then that's where you're
Yeah. And
supposed to
can you
be.
do the things in your life that you want? Like for me, having kids, it's like, can I go and play with my kids?
Right.
I wanted to go for a hike tomorrow. Would my body be able to do that? Like
Yep.
those are the things, that's like what motivates me to keep working out. I take a lot of pride in being able to move heavy things if my husband's not home. So it's like, can I, move the couch, or can I do these things? Um, so I think it's just kind of like blowing it up and looking outside that box of what are the things that I want to be able to do in my life, right? Like you mentioned travel earlier. Okay, I want to, go hike. I don't even know if you can hike Machu Picchu, but that's the first thing that came to mind. Like,
Yeah.
I want to go and I want to hike Machu Picchu, and I want to, go whitewater rafting, or I want to, walk the Great Wall of China. It's like, okay, great. Like, your body doesn't have to look a certain way to do that. Like, I want to love another person. I want to be able to love my kids. Like, they don't care what my body looks like. My husband doesn't care what my body looks like. Um, so I think it's that. And then I think just like practically an exercise that you can do, I've heard it called like mirror meditations or just mirror work, where it's like
Yeah.
just literally like stand in the mirror, and maybe you have to stand dressed for a little while, but just stand in the mirror, and it's like just look at yourself, take yourself in, and without using adjectives to describe, it's like, I have a body, I have two legs, I have two arms, I have a nose, I have a chin. It's like, you can't really argue with the reality of those things. It's like, yeah, I have a body. And that's, I think, the quickest way to kind of bring it into that neutral space, but then noticing and just being aware of when you want to, oh yeah, my legs are big, or my stomach's kind of big and squishy. It's like, just notice, like, okay, how are you wanting to describe your body? How
Mm.
is that making you feel? And just kind of pull it back in. Like, I have a stomach. I have two arms that I can hug my kids with, or I can hug my partner with, or that I'm going to hug my future partner or husband with. I have so it's just like really just being aware of the conversation that's happening when you're checking yourself out in the mirror, and just bring it back to like that very basic body part, right? Like, it's pretty hard to feel any negative way when you're just saying like, I have legs.
Right. I one of the things that I have women do is come up with a body mantra, like a positive body mantra, like my body is beautiful, or my body is strong, or instead of like always constantly talking about it in a negative way, to try to
Mm-hmm.
take some power back and being like, okay, and then putting it on their mirror so that as they're standing there looking at themselves, that they can remind themselves in that moment that their body is something positive. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's also part of rewriting that story is how you speak to yourself about your body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most powerful things is just, again, like recognizing and really starting to question the standard that you have for yourself of what's a beautiful
Mm.
body, or what would an
Mm-hmm.
acceptable quote unquote good body be from. And really just question, like, well, where did this idea come from? Why is it true? Is it possible that other bodies that don't fit this could also be good and healthy and, whatever. I mean, the reality is it's like all of our bodies are good because that's the way that they were made. And so it's like, doesn't matter what shape or size it is, like it's a good body. So yeah, I think it really just, it's like becoming aware that it's all optional, and to really just start to kind of question and poke holes and just sort of push back against your current beauty standards or expectations that you have for yourself.
And to not allow this skewed perception of your body that is not allowing you, by putting yourself out there, to try to find true love, because
Mm-hmm.
you're going to find someone who's going to love your body, but you have to love it first. You
Mm-hmm.
have to love it first in order to have someone else love it. Because
And if you,
go ahead.
go ahead.
I
I
think
was
we're
going
going
to
to
say,
say
if
the
you
same
don't,
thing.
yeah, if you don't,
Yeah.
that person totally can be okay and love your body. But if you aren't at a place where you're at least accepting that the body that you have right here and now is in fact lovable and beautiful and good, then it doesn't really matter what that other person says. They can tell you
That's
all
right.
day long, I love your
Yep.
body. Oh my gosh, I love your curves. You're so sexy. You're so this. But it's like, if your brain is so shut off to that, it doesn't matter. And I think a lot of times that could potentially end up becoming the thing that actually pulls you guys apart,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
you might feel like, oh, he's not being truthful, or so. I don't
Yes.
know if that's what you were going to say,
That's
but it's like,
exactly what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say. Literally. Um, well, I have loved having you here. I can't even believe it's already almost been an hour.
in an hour, I know it's
I
flown
know.
by.
So if my audience wants to know more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I actually have my own podcast. It is called The Strong Her Way. So we talk about nutrition, we talk about exercise, we talk about the body image stuff. I am a huge fan lately of kind of picking apart like current trends or current things like that, and really looking at it from a different perspective. So I think that's a great place to kind of come get a taste of what I like to talk about, or what it might be like to work with me. And if you want to connect on social media, I would say Instagram is probably a good place to do that, at Alicia Carlson _. Yeah, and if you like what you heard and you're interested in learning more about working with me, then I think you can just DM me on Instagram or shoot me an email. It's Alicia at aliciacarlson.com. So
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here. I loved our conversation, and I would love to have you back sometime. I feel like that we can kind of take this subject and kind of pick it apart and just talk about one particular thing. So thank you
yeah.
again. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, that was so fun. Thanks so much, Kat, for having
Yeah.
me.
You're welcome. See ya.
Bye.
All right. What'd you think? Alicia and I were like, we should do our like own little radio show. I will definitely be having her back, because it was such a joy to talk to her. And so thank you, Alicia, for coming to the show. Please make sure, my loves, if you are interested in working with her, I know that she has this brand new radical health and life makeover 12-month program that she has created. And so if you're interested in any of her services, you can follow her on Instagram, Facebook. You can check out her website, and I'll make sure and put all of those links down below. Thank you again, Alicia, for being a part of the show. It was so wonderful. All right, my love. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love having these interviews with these incredible women, and I would love to hear from you. Is this something that you want to hear more of? Do you want to hear more interviews? Let me know. Send me a message. Please make sure and let me know. So then that way I am delivering the content that you want to listen to. Okay. Well, thank you again for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, hey, what's up? Please make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and click the bell so a new episode is uploaded that you are the first to know. And if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, thank you. Please make sure and to rate and review and subscribe. And if you are on Facebook or Instagram, come on over and follow me at Kat Cantrell. My love, quit allowing your relationship with your body or your lack of relationship with your body to get in the way of finding ultimate and true love. All right. Because remember, true love is waiting for you, and I will see you next time. All right. Bye.